You want to finish what you started? You came to the right place. Them girls that you came with, you might have to part with. Depending on how this thing shakes. Wauwatosa, Kenosha, is in the house.
Hello, Northeast Wisconsin. It's Mike Gallagher. Last week I argued that as we fix our vaccine distribution problems, we would soon see supply shortages. And now we're starting to see supply shortages emerge, a problem that's likely to get worse as we not only fix our distribution issues, but we have more vaccinators coming online and more distribution channels like pharmacies coming online. So for example, this past week, about 290,000 doses for Wisconsin vaccinators, but only received about 78,000 doses because it's being distributed on a per capita basis from the federal government. And in Green Bay, we had hospitals that only got a small percentage of the supply they requested. So we have hospitals in particular that are stepping up, putting their own resources into expanding vaccine capacity, but they can't seem to get enough supply right now. So what is the problem? Well, interestingly enough, right now at least, money does not appear to be the issue. Congress, we funded all vaccine production and federal distribution to the states to be able to vaccinate all eligible Americans by the end of June. So the only question is whether states and healthcare providers need additional money to support the actual administration of the vaccines. But CMS has already set reimbursement for vaccine administration at certain rates that seem quite reasonable. So we will need to provide more resources to the hospitals, replenish something called the Provider Relief Fund, in particular find support for rural hospitals. And vaccinators should continue to get reimbursed for the cost of administering the vaccine. But I think it's fair to say that right now, at least, cost or a lack of funds from the federal government is not the source of the supply shortage. Now, this is important because Congress right now is debating how much money to spend in order to fix our vaccination problem. So what explains it if it's not a lack of funds? Well, as we saw with N95 mass production or finding testing reagent early in the crisis back in March, there are some limits to what we can produce domestically in America. As of now, the companies can't manufacture within any one company enough vaccine to satisfy the current demand for an unprecedented number of people. And think how complex all of these production processes are, between sourcing raw materials, training a workforce, using specialized equipment, packaging, quality control, production, shipping that can't instantly be ramped up. Also, some of these vaccines require an extreme cold chain, a dry ice refrigeration at Antarctic temperatures, which complicates shipment further as the vaccine needs to be shipped and stored in such a particular manner. And for at least Pfizer, some of their production facilities are in Europe, though we're getting at least 50% of their international supply in this quarter and likely at least 35% in the second quarter. So what do we do to fix the supply shortage? Well, to me, three things stand out. First, notwithstanding the production challenges here domestically, I do think we need to stay focused on that ambitious goal of having 300 million available doses by the end of April and 500 million available doses by the end of June. That means the Biden administration needs to raise what was a shockingly low goal from 100 million or 150 million within 100 days to at least 200 million, if not 250 million within 100 days. Both Pfizer and Moderna are already increasing their production capacity through additional sites and partnerships. We've deployed the Defense Production Act and other tools to help them. Johnson & Johnson hopefully will come online with a single-dose vaccine. That is particularly important. The data is promising right now. It's also important because that vaccine would not require the type of special handling that the other vaccines require. And having multiple manufacturers, each contributing their own supply, is of paramount importance to fixing the supply problem. So that's one. The second thing, given that there's so much blame game being played, the governor blaming the federal government, the local governments blaming the governor, this and that, I think we just need to commit to total transparency from the federal and the state governments. It goes both ways, right? The federal government should continue to force rank all the different governors, Wisconsin included, in order to put pressure on them to stay above 60 to 70% in terms of administering the doses that they've been given from the federal government. And the governor, in turn, should be fully transparent on how he's distributing the vaccines within the state, who's getting it, priorities. As I've argued before, I think we need to simplify the groups that are eligible for the vaccine. And I think this will become even more important as the additional distribution channels like CVS come online. But the states, I think, are right to demand that the federal government and HHS not only satisfy their vaccine demand, but also provide a projection of supply 3 to 4 weeks in advance so that states like Wisconsin can plan. They can adjust their distribution plans as necessary. And as much as I would like to see Wisconsin get a disproportionate share of these doses, because I'm a homer, I think we could all agree that the fair thing to do would be to distribute the vaccine to the states on a per capita basis, so no single state is getting special treatment. And with modern technology, we should be able to track that stuff in near real time. The third thing, and finally, that I'm kind of worried about is as we ramp up to 300 million doses by April, 500 million by June, I guarantee you that the pendulum is going to swing back the other way. In other words, we're going to fix our supply shortage only to confront a huge demand problem. And by this, I mean we're going to get to a point where not enough people are willing to get the vaccine. Because keep in mind, we'll also be getting immunity, not just through vaccinations, but through infections. And the state's goal right now is 80% vaccine coverage for adults, if I remember correctly. And the question is, will 80% of Wisconsin adults be willing to get the vaccine? Already, we've seen a surprisingly high number of healthcare workers, of nursing home workers who are choosing not to be vaccinated. And if healthcare workers are skeptical, I would assume the general population will be even more skeptical. So throughout this process, I think we need to do a better job of giving the public confidence in the vaccine itself. And with this in mind, there have been some discussions of publicly vaccinating influencers and athletes. That may help. I'm sure Wisconsinites are more likely to listen to Aaron Rodgers than me when it comes to the vaccine, or really when it comes to anything. But for what it's worth, from my perspective, these were some of the largest vaccine trials ever conducted. And Operation Warp Speed, which developed the vaccine, didn't achieve warp speed, i.e. a historically fast production of the vaccine, by cutting corners on safety standards or neglecting oversight. We did it by providing funding for research and development up front, providing a purchase contract up front, forcing the federal bureaucracy to review submissions and data right away as opposed to waiting for months for endless subcommittee meetings and TPS reports to be produced. And I would also say that the government specialists who saw this process up close and know the data are being vaccinated. And finally, we're 2 months in right now, and knock on wood, there have been no major problems emerge. So I think this was a remarkable achievement, a historic achievement, and it's a rare bright spot in this dark coronavirus mess. But it will mean nothing if we cannot distribute and administer the vaccine quickly enough to save lives and widespread enough in order to save lives. And so, again, I just want to commend the hospitals in Wisconsin for everything they're doing, going above and beyond in order to fix our distribution problems and get the vaccine out there to Wisconsinites. And I think we can all agree that ensuring an adequate supply of vaccine should be our top priority going forward. So sorry for the Friday rant. This is a very complicated issue, and hopefully some of that made sense.
The dude